Trudy Mason sitting in for Elias Makos today, and the panel is pumped up on the sugar and caffeine from leftover Halloween candy, and we're ready to go. It's going to be a great panel. In studio, former Liberal MP Marlene Jennings, and from Montreal Community Contact, Egbert Gaye. Thanks very much for coming in today, guys.
Pleasure.
Let's dive right in, because we have one of the big education unions, teachers unions, the CSQ, denouncing Bill 40. Bill 40 is the proposed law to abolish school boards and replace them with regional administrative centers. The CSQ doesn't much like it because it says it is an attack on teachers, and it says children from disadvantaged backgrounds will not have the opportunity to go to some of the best schools. Is there a seeing of eye to eye with the CSQ on this question? Egbert, let's start with you.
You know what? The CSQ is zeroing in on something that's really important here in these hearings, in these hearings, in that it looks as if at the end of it that parents are going to have a choice in choosing what school to go to. And once choice come into the equation, when we're looking at something like education, then you know who's going to get shafted? Poor people. People who live in disadvantaged neighborhoods, people who cannot access the good schools, they are the ones that are inevitably going to be left out. What we need, and here's the problem with the legislation that the CAQ is looking at, there was not adequate hearings, not adequate consultations. No one is going to stand and defend the EMSB just like that, but we need to have some sort of consultation. So if indeed that the CSQ can zero in and say, well, here is one of the failings, this is a serious one because it's going to affect people in a negative manner. And I guess the response from the CAQ should be, we're going to invest in public school, we're going to invest in all public schools and make sure that they are adequate for all citizens. But we're not hearing that. What we're hearing is we want to reform the school board system, and we are going to do it by hook or crook.
Marlene.
What I find really interesting is that there was a study that came out recently based on OECD's criteria for schools. Mm-hmm. And it was based on all of the schools in Canada. And it came back with the results that Quebec schools are already the least democratic in terms of the access children from low income, from poor neighborhoods have to quality education. And that was because we already offer so many specialized programs, sport études, art études, the whole bit, that's already streaming kids out of and then depriving the schools that don't have those programs with resources. Another thing that I find really curious is that if you look at Bill 40, the Cree School Board has been exempted from Bill 40. If you look at Kativik School Board for the Innu and Inuits, they've also been exempted. Well, the English-speaking minority communities have a constitutional right to control and manage education. We should be exempted, and then we should decide what form of governance we want for our schools and education and our students. We should be making that pari pour.
Well, you know, this union representing over 100,000 teachers, I believe, they have a lot of good to say in their critique of Bill 40, which I don't like at all. But I think this is also illustrative of why I don't want teachers running the system by themselves. I think we have to, because they're wrong on some questions, and they are completely at odds with parents on some questions. And I think we need to have a balance of teachers, parents, administration, and staff coming together to run the system. I want choice. Out in my area, out on the West Island, the Lester B gives you a choice. You don't want your kid to go to that elementary school, go to that school. Our kids had multiple high schools to pick from. The only barrier was getting them there. And outside of certain busing zones, you had to pay extra for busing if it was offered, and that wasn't guaranteed. there was a cost. So I can see that it might work against some low-income families who want their kids to go out of their neighborhood.
Trudy, because
but parents want choice. Teachers don't like choice,
not
but
choice
parents
based on
want
money,
choice.
Trudy, not choice based on money. Your access should depend on geography. Not on your finances, not getting that kid to Royal
And it always
West.
is. You always have the choice of going to your local neighborhood school.
Right.
Where you're zoned. You have that choice. You don't want to go there, you can go elsewhere. But choice to me is an important component. And you know what? I like magnet programs too, because they cater to the strengths of kids.
But the study showed, I grew up in on the South Shore, English Protestant School Board at the time of the South Shore. And the year I got into high school was the year that they began what they call streaming. So you had program for the gifted students. It was called Enriched program, a regular program, and then you had a program for students who had difficulties in learning to give them the basics so that they could actually graduate high school. I was in the Enrich program. It was great. That's not the issue. The issue to me is that there should be choice within the school itself. And then, yes, choice within the geographical, like say the school board, all of the schools there. There should be choice, and there shouldn't be barriers so that because of low income, because of poverty, you're not able to make the choice to send your child to another school. That's where I think there's a problem.
What the union is pointing at, it's an a la carte approach. That means an inordinate amount of parents are going to be drawn to certain schools, and that's going to draw resources away from the regular schools. The problem is not choice. The problem has to be with the allocation of resources.
Yes.
That's what it is. The problem is, let's invest heavily in all public education so that all kids can have access to equalized education.
Well,
That's all it is.
I don't think anyone's going to argue against more investment in education, but I think the fact of the matter is that one particular school doesn't have the resources to offer, for example, enriched arts and enriched sports and enriched math and enriched science. They just don't have the resources. You can't have every magnet program in every school. You have to, especially on the Anglophone side. So choices have to be made. And also the special programs like Sport d'études, I believe that's limited by the province.
I don't know enough about that, but I do believe that, yes, you're right. Every single school cannot offer every single magnet program that is available. If we want to put choice in there, then we have to ensure that the children who would normally be going to a particular school that doesn't offer the magnet program that child wants and the parents want them to take, they have the choice to go to another school within the same school board. So that geographical area, and that transportation does not become a barrier to that. So when you're talking about Lester B, where, there were certain schools you could move your children to out of the neighborhood school, and there was transportation, but others you had to pay a supplement. Well, some parents don't have the money to pay the supplement, especially if you're talking about 2, 3, 4 children.
Back with Egbert Gaye from Montreal Community Contact and former Liberal MP Marlene Jennings. We're still on the education beat, talking about the English Montreal School Board. There's a report in the Journal de Montréal today that quotes sources as going into some detail about an auditor's report. Now, we've known that the EMSB has been subject to some special scrutiny. There have been concerns about infighting, about management practices, about spending and so on. This report says that the auditors were surprised to see that the board was spending taxpayers' dollars on such items as dozens of bottles of wine for meetings of the commissioners, $400 retirement watch for an employee, flowers, chocolates, over $1,000 in chocolates, some travel as well. That's over the past number of years. And I guess the question is, Does any of this not sit right with you? Is $400 reasonable as a parting gift for a retiring employee? Are you concerned that taxpayers' money is going to this? Marlene?
Well, there normally should be rules about, well, if gifts are being to be given, what the occasion is, what the criteria is, and the amount that should be spent on it. I mean, I sit on the board of a number of organizations, and there are very clear rules. And part of the rules in determining, for instance, the value would depend on how important the role of the person, say, retiring is, etc. So I can only assume that either there are not clear rules at that school board, or if they are, they were not respected.
You know what? Excuse me. The EMSB has been the object of ridicule from different forces in society, and certainly, taking a hit or two from the French media is not. You can be expected. Look, it really is not that big a deal. I think the EMSB has been doing quite a good job in terms of getting good results from students. I have a whole lot of problems with the EMSB for the way I think some minority issues are handled, and I think that would be my biggest concern. But I'm spending some money on wine and some flowers and a watch for $400 is really not something that we should be picking at the edges at. I don't think it's a big deal, but I know the EMSB has been bad in terms of some of the internal politics and from what we've been hearing. But I think that picking at wine and a little bit of those chocolates you gave us this morning, they're not like really expensive chocolates.
No, I think Shui brought them in too. So there was no company money spent on the leftover Halloween candy. The only thing I'm going to pick at, and I will pick at this, is the booze. You want to drink.
Booze, it's
you
wine.
Want to drink. You do it on your own time.
It's not wine. It's wine. It's not a big deal. You
I
have
don't care.
wine.
It's alcohol. You want alcohol?
Yeah.
BYOB.
Really?
I don't think taxpayers' money should be going to buy alcohol for anybody.
It's wine.
So, I don't care what it is. If it's wine, if it's
I'm going to let the two of you duke it out.
If it's Southern Comfort and 7, I don't care. I don't think taxpayers' money should go that.
I think you're picking at the scabs unnecessarily here. I think that, it's sometimes you sit in a social setting, whether it's a meeting or not, and you have a bottle of wine. That's fine. I don't drink alcohol.
No, you're there to work. You're a commissioner. You're there to work. And if you want to go in and booze after, or bring your own wine in. Do a whip round. Every week it's somebody else bringing in their favorite wine. I don't think taxpayers should pay for that.
But it's not something we should pick at. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Because you know what it is? It's entitlement. It's feeling that it's taxpayers' money. They're entitled to dip into it for their own pleasure. No.
If it's indicative of a more serious, greater problem, and we don't have access to the report, so we only know what the Journal de Montréal, and clearly what they would report on would be the most flashy. But who knows what else the report says. But
there's the point. If that's the most flashy, if that's the most grabbing of all the issues,
then
I think it's fine. It's okay. But I think that we have to be mindful of the fact that they are going to be the object of ridicule because the government is aiming much of its efforts here at getting rid of the MSP.
Yeah, but the one thing that's clear, I can remember back around 2009, 2010, under the Liberal government, they had investigators go in.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
And the reports were not very good, and they had somebody trying to help them the whole bit, and apparently the person threw up their hands.
Well, I think that Mike Cohen was on with Andrew Carter this morning, and he basically said this story lacks the comparison with every other school board. Do they pay retirement gifts? Do they buy wine for meetings? Do they buy chocolates to thank, workers for something or other? it's not fair to pick on the EMSB when I would suspect quite a bit of this goes on at other boards. And I think he's right with that. Yes. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about this woman up in Laval. I was quite distressed by this story, who found an anonymous note from a neighbor in her mailbox delivered in the dead of night. This is what it said. How dare you allow your daughters to wear a veil? Shame on you. You are in Quebec. Shame on your men imam. No future for them. Stop affronting us. We don't want Islamic hijabs. Down with brainwashing. Understood? And this woman has spoken to the Gazette. She's keeping her name confidential, obviously, because she's worried about repercussions. Is there anything that can be done? Is it even worth calling the cops? She did. But do you think it's even worth calling the cops, Marlene?
Well, I think that it is worth calling the cops because at least then it's officially registered and becomes part of stats, okay? And we need stats to be able to understand the l'ampleur, the
size of the
phenomena. So yes. Will the police actually be able to do anything? No. I mean, the most that they could do is dust it for prints and see if they get any prints, see if the person who has those prints are already in the judicial system, the criminal justice system. That would be the most that they would be able to do. Chances are that even that isn't going to happen. But I think it's good that the woman brought it to the police and brought it to the public, because that is hate.
Absolutely. Look.
Pure and simple. And that's not what we stand for in Quebec or in Canada.
Well, it is what we stand for here in Quebec now, as being showcased by the government. It looks at a bigger issue. Once you see neighbor is being pitted against neighbor, then you understand the extent of the environment that the government has set. That's the issue. It's a big one that the government is saying that it's okay to hate. It's as Bill 21 legitimizes hate. And normally in the neighborhoods, people are cool with each other. They get
to know each other.
Absolutely. But now you have this foundational thing upon which you can build animosity. And that's big, and that's wrong, and that's making Quebec a frightening place to live for certain people.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be seen for what it is. This is beyond police. This is for the federal government to take a look and say, probably we are going in a direction that's not safe for certain groups in Quebec. This can lead to violence.
I'm pinning this directly on 21. This is a fallout from 21. There's 100%. No question.
It
is. To me, the telling phrase is this: stop affronting us.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that absolutely screams white supremacy and Quebecois de souche supremacy, or traditional francophone. Is that the way we're talking about it now? Traditional francophone supremacy. Stop affronting us being, I guess, people who don't look like you, who aren't of the same religion. Yeah. Us meaning bigots.
Damn.
Stop affronting us. Yeah. We are bigots and we can't abide you affronting us. Where does that person get off? Telling a neighbor that what she chooses to wear on her head affronts them.
What I find really deplorable is that Bill 21 completely cut the knees off of any kind of public discussion about what is a secular state and how do we respect the religious rights of individuals and at the same time have a secular state. What does it actually mean in practice? It does, in my view, that's my personal view, it doesn't mean that someone who wears a religious symbol is not able to work in the provincial civil service or in our institutions. What it means is that they're not allowed to proselytize.
That's all.
While they're working and being paid with our tax dollars.
What the government has done is has taken the meaning of secularism and turned it into a political weapon. The problem here is everyone in Quebec, we talk about 70% of Quebecers are for secularism. 100% of Quebecers should be for secularism. But none should be against people wearing certain things in public.
Except here we have two texts in on this question. and both of them disagree with you.
I'm sure.
One is religion is a choice, not a right.
Right.
Well, I think what that woman has a right to do is whatever she damn well wants in your neighborhood on the street. Thank you very much, texter. And the other, Craig from Il Perot, says, I think the letter is well-founded. And my question to Craig is, who the hell do you think you are telling a woman what she can wear? Who do you think you are?
And if I may, religion and religious beliefs are protected under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Quick one to wrap up the panel today. Having endured the switch, the fall back early Sunday morning, we did get an extra hour of sleep, but I'm completely discombobulated by this. Doesn't matter. Spring forward, fall back. I'm discombobulated. This big movement being led by, well, BC, Ontario, they're talking about it everywhere, to get rid of the time change and just go with standard time. Yay or nay?
I don't know. I just came back from Winnipeg. They're 1 hour behind, right? Yeah, I just came back last night. They're 1 hour behind. So I came back here and we 1 hour ahead and then we turned it back. So I have no clue.
I have no clue. I mean, I'm going to be 68 in a few days. I've
matter.
lived with, our, spring forward, fall back all my life. So it's just ingrained in my DNA. If we change to standard, I'm sure it'll take me 68 years to get used to it.
I think it's some kind of some commercial initiative here. I'm not sure what it is. The business guys want it to be.
No, and it's
who
actually
wants
it's based in science.
Science?
It'd be better for our bodies if we went to standard. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready. I'm ready. I probably would have resisted when I was young. I'm ready.
I think
Let's
it's too
get
many
rid of it.
chocolates, if you ask me.
That could just be, you're right, the sugar talk, and that's the sugar talk. Thanks very much to Marlene Jennings, Liberal MP, former Liberal MP, and Egbert Gaye from Montreal Community Contact. Thanks very much.